if you're interested in doing the post survey, please put your email in the chat and I'll send it to you. Um, Today is our last day of the week for the office hours. So if you need anything tomorrow or Friday or through the weekend, please feel free to call and leave a voicemail or email me, and I can get to you on Monday when I return. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the language of appreciation. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because I understand as a therapist and a wellness advocate that gratitude can be really hit or miss. I think our culture likes to use it as almost like a band-aid for things. You could be really going through something and they'll just be like, well, just practice gratitude. And it just seems kind of dismissive. It can be almost be like a bypass in some way. But I want to really anchor in today that we are in a season of, Thanksgiving. And I think it's important to be grateful and to practice gratitude. But I think oftentimes we're almost like the expectation to be grateful can be a little daunting, especially if there are some things going on in our lives that we're unsure about. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of potential loss on the horizon. And so it can be kind of hard to be grateful in those spaces. And I think that's okay, right? So we're going to focus today on gratitude that feels real to us. So finding small truths, small things to be grateful for, even when our life is feeling heavy. It's not going to be a very long or in-depth training. I tried to keep them kind of light this month just because I know it can be stressful outside of this space. And so this will be a very simple, gentle training. Okay. At least that's the goal. All right. So what's our intention for today? So we are not trying to force joy and we're not trying to pretend that we're okay if we aren't okay. We're just going to try to focus on tiny moments and how noticing tiny moments can really help steady our nervous system. We're going to take an exploration into gratitude that doesn't minimize hardship that we may be experiencing. Okay. And then hopefully we'll be able to leave with a few practical habits that feel doable, even on days that are hard. Okay. So we want to honor the full spectrum, right? So there can be appreciation and, uncertainty in the same breath, right? We can have both. We can be in a space where we want something to be different, but also be grateful for what we have and where we are right now. Okay. It doesn't have to be either or. So why does gratitude get a bad reputation? Well, modern gratitude culture is often weaponized. Like I was saying before, it can be very dismissive. If you come to somebody and you're talking about something that maybe is a concern for you, and they just go, "Well, it could be worse," right? You should at least be grateful for A, B, and C, which is well-meaning, but at its core, it can be very, very dismissive. And so that could be why gratitude gets a bad rap, right? And it can create false positivity that feels more like pressure than peace, right? Well, I have to be grateful this time of year. I have to be happy. I can't complain. And that can definitely cause a lot of pressure on our nervous system to behave in a way that is inauthentic to where we actually are. And then, of course, if you're having experiences of grief or frustration or fatigue, that doesn't just disappear because someone says be thankful, right? And so you can be both tired and thankful for things like a hot coffee or, a good meal, right? You can be both. And so the way that we can reframe gratitude is to really just make space for the whole truth, right? I'm exhausted and I'm still grateful for, a warm blanket, right? The both and, right, is what a human nervous system responds to, okay? So when we think of gratitude from a cultural perspective, it can seem very oppressive because it's the expectation behind it, right? Service with a smile, right? Always doing, always being, always giving, and being grateful in that space isn't always possible, and that's okay, all right? So briefly, what is the science of gratitude? Okay, so this will be brief and grounded. And you don't need to feel grateful for it to help, okay? You can just notice things that you are grateful for, even if gratitude isn't your overarching feeling at the time, okay? So, a gratitude practice, which is intentionally noticing things that you're grateful for on a consistent basis, what this does is it activates our rest and digest, our settled state in our nervous system, right? It's the parasympathetic nervous system, the one that says you're safe, right? This is the one where we feel most content. This is where we are the most open to other people and energy and positive experiences. We're not restricting our capacity to what's the word I'm looking for? You know, when you're not feeling safe, right? Everything is kind of constricted, right? You have a lot more self-doubt. You doubt your environment. You doubt your people. And so a parasympathetic opening, that safety space, it allows you to be more restful and less alert, less on alert, right? And what does that do? Well, that reduces a lot of our stress responses, which is, our blood pressure, can go back down to a healthy space. It'll reduce cortisol and like adrenaline that kind of gets pumped into our system when we're activated. And it also strengthens our emotional resilience because it helps us to retrain the way that our brain notices and focuses things on things in our environment, right? So if you are stressed out, if you're in a high anxiety state, you're going to be looking for all the things going wrong because your body's trying to protect itself, right? But what gratitude does is it kind of dampens that and kind of smooths out the rough edges a little bit. So where you are intentionally focusing on the safe things, the positive things, the good things, okay? Doesn't mean you're manufacturing positivity. You're just noticing where it is in your awareness, okay? Because we can always find something to be grateful for if we're looking for it. The problem is our nervous system doesn't naturally look for those things. It will always naturally look for threat. Okay. So we build resilience through recognizing patterns, not denying that we're experiencing stress or we're experiencing fear. Okay. I hope that makes sense. And so this really just shifts our body out of that survival mode. Okay. Even if it's just for a little bit, it's good for our nervous system to kind of give it that exhale, right? So gratitude is really about biology, right? It's not necessarily denying anything, okay? So let's do a side by side here because, again, we hear the word gratitude and it almost has become synonymous with toxic positivity. So we're going to side by side toxic positivity and true appreciation just real quick, okay? So toxic positivity says, look on the bright side, okay? And true appreciation says, I see one bright thing in the dark. So what that shift is, it's you're not denying the dark, but you're acknowledging the light within that dark, okay? Where toxic positivity is denying that anything is really happening, that, you just focus on the good vibes only, right? That's not healthy. That's not how we work as human beings. Toxic positivity starts phrases like at least, right? Well, at least you have so-and-so home with you, or at least you don't have this experience that somebody else had, okay? Again, maybe well-intended, but what it does is it dismisses the feeling that you're feeling, the experience that you're having, okay? So true appreciation would be, even though this is happening, I still value this, okay? So again, you're acknowledging the reality you're in and still finding gratitude in that space, okay? Toxic positivity will dismiss pain, and we do that to ourselves all the time. But true appreciation holds both pain and presence. Yes, this is hard, right? But I've gotten through it before, or whatever, right? And then finally, toxic positivity gives that pressure to feel better, right? Well, just be grateful, just stay positive, just be happy, just focus on the good things, right? There's a lot of pressure in that because that's not how our nervous systems work, right? And true appreciation is permission to feel everything. Yes, this sucks, but this is also good too, right? And Crystal, your story before really kind of puts a good picture to this, right? Like, yes, it's not the big family get together that it used to be, but it's a lot more peaceful, right? So you're giving yourself permission to feel both, and you're not shaming yourself for either one, okay? So appreciation basically boils down to it's not emotional bypass, it's emotional bandwidth, okay? Because we are multifaceted beings. We do not stay in static characters, okay? We have a variety, we have a spectrum of feelings and emotions that happen at once, okay? Next. So gratitude does not have to be profound, okay? It doesn't have to be, let me sit aside an hour every day and go through all the wonderful things going on in my life and ignore all the stuff that is bothering me, okay? These are tiny little things that we can do every day to signal to our nervous system, look for the safe things, look for the things going well to kind of counteract that or balance out, I should say, that negativity bias that we all naturally have, okay? So it doesn't have to be big and grandiose, it just needs to be felt, okay? So we start small. So here's some very simple ways that we can do that. Warm water on your hands, right? That might not feel good to you, it feels good to me, but just noticing that this feels good. I enjoy this sensation, okay? The smell of dinner simmering, right? These are sensory, mindful moments, okay? These are sensory notice, like we notice these sensations to bring us into our present state, okay? A shared laugh, a moment of silence, a soft blanket, right? So these are just, it's not necessarily thinking, well, I'm grateful for this, but it's giving your body cues, permission to enjoy things that aren't necessarily going on in your mind or out in the world, right? It's a reorienting. So you're not necessarily in the past or in the future all the time, right? You're in the present moment. And that's what settles the nervous system. That allows us to get our cognitive capacity back online. We're not in our stress response, and we can start to see things more clearly, okay? And when we see things more clearly, we're more apt to find the positive rather than just being overwhelmed by the negative, okay? So you can enter this into the chat, you can unmute, you can just think about it to yourself. But what is one micro moment that you've noticed even today, right? Just something small that happened that you allowed yourself to experience and it was positive for you. I'll tell you mine, hitting my snooze more than once this morning and laying in my bed for an extra 5 minutes. That felt good, right? So it just needs to be attention. It doesn't have to be grandeur, okay? So again, gratitude is a tool we can use for nervous system regulation, okay? Every sincere thank you or I notice, this acts like a small grounding pause, okay? Looks like we got something in the chat. Kiddos are excited to help you cook. Yes, yes, that's wonderful. Not everybody's kids want to do that. They want to take off and just come back when it's done. So gratitude, how does this impact our nervous system? It can help us to slow our breathing down without even trying, okay? Because our mind is kind of in that, we've kind of kicked on our rest nervous system, right? We've allowed that to turn on again. So we're going to slow our breath down. It's going to loosen the shoulders, right? Maybe you've got a clenched jaw, right? It kind of help you just relax and get out of that bracing state where our bodies kind of get into without us even realizing that they're there, right? It can help to steady the heart rate. And this is most important, it helps to shift the brain out of vigilance and into presence, okay? And so that's why you see all of those physical responses, all those somatic responses, because your nervous system is shifting out of vigilance and into presence. And so you naturally will just relax, okay? So even just taking one slow breath and notice one thing that has worked for you today or that went well today, right? That is those little micro adjustments we can do to regulate our nervous system with gratitude, okay? So practicing real appreciation instead of that toxic positivity. This is where we replace obligation with observation, okay? So instead of saying, I should be grateful for, right? Because we add that word should into something, what we're already doing is we're inviting shame, okay? I should be grateful for, but I'm not, right? It's really like what you're saying, right? And that again, that could be a very real statement, right? I should be grateful for this, but I'm not. That's honest. But when you frame it with should, then you are setting yourself up to say, there's an expectation I did not meet, right? And so that's where shame decides to sit at the table because they're like, oh, you set a place for me. How nice, right? So what we can do instead is you can say, I noticed blank, right? I noticed that mom smiled today and she hasn't smiled in 2 weeks, right? I appreciated the moment when, or I felt eased when, okay? So what this does is it keeps your gratitude rooted in your reality and not your performance, right? Because I should be grateful is gearing yourself up to perform gratitude, right? But when you notice things that you're grateful for, when you allow your field of, awareness to pick up on those little things, then it becomes, this is what's happening in my reality, not what is missing or what's lacking, right? So again, you're not denying your reality. You're not covering it with flowery language. You're just shifting the internal narration, okay? And the way you tell a story has a huge impact on how that story anchors in you, okay? So we all know that caregiving is relational at its core, right? It's not just doing a job, it is maintaining relationship, right? And so we can have relational gratitude. So real appreciation can strengthen those bonds, right? It can reduce tension. And my favorite, it encourages that shared calm with co-regulation, okay? So when you think about your caregiving and if you're communicating with the people you're taking care of or the person that you're taking care of, you can say things like, I see how hard you're trying, right? You're appreciating the effort that they're putting in and you're acknowledging that, right? Say, thank you for trusting me, right? Thank you for, for allowing me to be in a space where, you're vulnerable, but you can trust me here with you, right? And then just acknowledging when moments mean something, right? When there's a shared moment between you and your loved one that you're caring for that means something, point it out, okay? This is how we create that relational gratitude, right? You're building relationship with somebody using the tool of gratitude, okay? So connection doesn't need those big moments. They just need to be honest moments, right? So this turns care tasks into moments of connection, okay? Just a few more slides. I told you to be short today. So here's the reflection activity that we can try. And of course, you can share in the chat or you can just write it down or think to yourself. There will be no pop quiz later. But what's one small thing that you noticed that this week that's helped you to keep going? Was it 5 minutes alone in the car? Was it the way that your child responded to you? Or, maybe a nurse remembered your name and they never really do, right? But just small things that you noticed that really gave you that boost, right? Put the wind back in your sails. Be grateful for that, right? Was it an encouraging word? Was it, somebody offering to help you put your groceries in the car? Was it, your kids remembering to brush their teeth without you telling them, right? These tiny things that keep us going, that don't deplete us, that replenish us, and often go unnoticed because they are so small, right? And the big things that keep us in a space where we're not feeling grateful can definitely cast a shadow on all these little guys. But it's these little guys together that help us balance out the big shadow, right? And so this is just an invitation to start to notice those little things. They're all over the place. Okay, we just have to be looking for them, and our brain naturally is not looking for them, right? And that's the problem. Well, maybe not the problem, but that's the intentional shift that we have to make, right? Um, Sorry, Crystal, I tried to see what was in the chat, but it just flared up and then went away. There we go. All of the hard work matters. My kiddos notice more than what I give them credit for, whether they voice it all or not. Yeah, that's very true. Kids are little sponges too. They pick up everything, good or bad, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
worried now because I'm teaching them the toxic positivity. All that that you said is exactly what I do. And I thought I was, you know, trying to be positive, but I guess I was trying to ignore. I don't know. It's a topic for Kendra for sure.
Yeah, and it can be kind of tricky because, it can look very similar, right? All right.
I'm used
So,
to being so negative though. I'm used to being so negative and like it took me until my 20s to try to get out of that
mhm,
because I learned that I was so miserable because I was constantly being so negative. If I faked positivity, good things would happen and then I would fall into it.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. You're not alone in that, Crystal. So, how do we integrate gratitude into our routine? Okay, so this is about consistency, not intensity. Okay, because this is how we actually create those shifts in our nervous system to where this becomes a normal pattern. This is a habit that we're forming, right? So, these are tiny things that we can do that are repeated because that's how we enter steadiness in our own body. Okay. So something simple that you can do, just do an end of the day check-in, right? Some people like to journal. Some people just like to sit and contemplate. One thing that worked today, right? Just one thing that worked. And you can pair your gratitude practice with things that you already do habitually, right? Because again, we're trying to build a habit. So maybe have this check in while you're brushing your teeth, right? You're going to do that every day anyway. Might as well use that as a cue for you to start your gratitude check in, right? Um, Making coffee or tea or breakfast or dinner or whatever you're doing every day, turning off all the lights at night, right? On your way to bed and you're turning off all the lights, practice your gratitude then, right? Or maybe when you get home from a shift at work and you just want to sit down and use that time to decompress and use your gratitude practice there. Okay. So something that you do every day that you don't even think about having to do every day, use that as your time. Incorporate that into your routine, that gratitude into your routine. Okay. And this is how we build that consistency. That's how we build the resilience. Okay. That's how we build the habit of gratitude. Okay. One more slide. So gratitude is not pretending that everything is okay. Okay. It's remembering that something still is, right? Yes, your kid maybe overflowed the toilet for the third time this week. You can be grumpy about that. That's okay. But you can also remember that there's good things that happen that day too, right? I know for me, my kids would, and I use that example of toilet flooding because it would just seem like it was like 3 years of toilet being flooded for some reason. Um, and I would get so angry because it's like, oh, it's just more mess for me to clean up. And so it'd be hard to be grateful in that situation. But when I would pause, I would say, they're learning, they're learning how to use the toilet, right? And I can be grateful for that. I can be grateful that this is a step in the process towards independence, right? It doesn't, clean the dookie off my floor, but it makes it a little easier to navigate because I know this is temporary, right? So we can do both, right? We can hold the things that ache and appreciation at the same time. I think we sell ourselves short as human beings and our capacity to hold multiple things in equal truth at the same time. We are built for that. That's how we get dimensional understanding of the world, right? That's how our cognition works, right? This is what separates us from the animal kingdom, right? Um, so just be mindful of that, okay? It doesn't have to be either or. And sometimes I think we let one bad thing happen and it derails our entire day, right? And sometimes that one thing is a derailing thing, right? You get in a car wreck or something, right? But more often than not, that one little thing can set the tone for the rest of the day. And we lose track of all the things within that 24-hour period that did go well, right? Because we're wired for that. It's a survival mechanism in our brain. Okay. And so when we do things like mindfulness, when we reorient to gratitude, we're essentially telling our brain that the old system is not working in our new reality, right? In our modern world. And so we have to reorient and we have to strengthen those neural pathways with intention every day. Okay. I am a lot more comfortable and grateful now than I was 5 years ago. And it wasn't because I woke up one day and said, I'm going to be grateful and I'm going to be positive. No, I woke up one day and said, this isn't working for me. I'm killing myself. Let me make a change. And there has been an arc over the years to get me where I am today. Okay. So it takes time, but it also requires you to be purposeful in that shift. Okay. Just remember your nervous system deserves gentleness. Okay. We are wired for calm. So we can use gratitude as a soft place to land. Okay. Not denying the crummy stuff, but acknowledging that the good stuff happens in the same space. Okay. They can work together. You can't have cloud and sunshine in the same sky. We've seen it, especially in Alabama. We've seen it, right? All right. So that's the end of that. I told you it would be very short. It was under 30 minutes. But here's my contact info. Again, if you want to reach out to me for a care chat, for therapy services, for resources, or just to get maybe, a copy of maybe a training or something that you wanted to do a deeper dive into, whatever you need, within reason. Obviously, I'm not going to loan anybody money, but here's my contact info. Email me, give me a call. I don't work Wednesdays, but you can always leave a message and yeah, I'll get you where you need to go. Stop the share. Oop, wrong button. Hold on. I was gonna stop the recording. There it is. They updated Zoom.